Everything in life, every market, every decision, every rise and fall moves in cycles. It's one of the most fundamental realities that people ignore again and again. They chase moments as if they'll last forever, forgetting that nothing ever does. The seasons change, the tides turn, what goes up always comes down, and what falls eventually finds a floor. Yet every time it happens, people act surprised. That's the illusion we live in, the illusion of permanence. When silver prices rise, people convince themselves it's the beginning of something endless. When they fall, fear takes over, and the same people think it will never recover. But neither belief is true. Both are emotional reactions to a cycle that's far older than any of us. The truth is, cycles are the universe's way of keeping balance. When optimism grows too fast, it becomes greed. When fear dominates too long, it becomes opportunity. And somewhere in between those extremes, reality waits quiet, patient, unchanging. The market doesn't reward emotion. It rewards understanding. It rewards those who can step back and see the rhythm that others are too distracted to hear. What's coming next week, next month, or next year? It isn't random. It's the next turn in a pattern that's been unfolding for decades. The forces behind it: inflation, debt, supply, confidence, policy. They're not surprises, they're consequences. They're the result of actions that built up over time, layer by layer, decision by decision, until the weight of imbalance became too heavy to ignore. But here's the problem: most people don't study the cycles. They only study the outcomes. They see price charts, headlines, predictions, but not the principles. They want the reward without the rhythm. They want to ride the wave without respecting the ocean. And when that wave crashes, as it always does, they blame the storm instead of their lack of preparation. Cycles don't punish, they teach. They reveal who's grounded in reality and who's trapped in emotion. They show who built their foundation on principle and who built it on hope. And right now, silver holders are standing on the edge of one of those turning points. Some feel confident, others anxious, but very few understand that what's coming isn't personal. It's mathematical. It's structural. It's the system breathing in and out as it always has. If you've lived through enough cycles, you start to notice something. Every boom carries the seed of its own bust, and every bust carries the potential for renewal. The wise don't try to fight it. They study it. They learn to move with it, because once you see the pattern clearly, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That's the shift from fear to understanding, from panic to preparation. The people who survive these transitions aren't the ones who predict them perfectly. They're the ones who respect them, who accept that life, like the market, isn't linear. It's cyclical. It expands, it contracts, it tests, it restores. So when people say, next week will be different, I smile, because it won't be different. It will be another turn in the same eternal rhythm. The players may change, the tools may evolve, but the psychology stays the same. Human nature doesn't disappear. Greed, fear, hope, they repeat like notes in a song we've all heard before. And if you listen carefully enough, you'll start to hear it too. The quiet pulse beneath the noise, the subtle rhythm beneath the chaos. That's where truth lies, not in prediction, but in pattern. Not in panic, but in patience. Because the ones who understand cycles, they don't just survive what's coming, they're ready for it. One of the hardest things for people to accept is that they are not in control. They believe they are. They build plans, make predictions, place bets, and tell themselves they understand what's coming next. But the truth is, most of what happens in life and in markets unfolds far beyond our reach. We convince ourselves that by studying enough charts, by reading enough news, by following the right voices, we can somehow outsmart uncertainty. We hold on tighter, we calculate deeper, we move faster, as if effort could rewrite reality. But control, real control, doesn't come from prediction. It comes from perspective. When I watch investors, I see it over and over again. They chase certainty. They crave it. They want to believe that they can know what silver will do next week, that they can see the future before it happens. But that need for control blinds them. It turns analysis into emotion. It replaces calm reflection with restless guessing. And that's the illusion, the belief that the more we try to control, the safer we are. When in reality, it's often the opposite. The more we grasp, the more we lose sight of the larger forces shaping everything around us. The world doesn't bend to our predictions. It moves according to principles. Principles that existed long before us and will continue long after we're gone. The economy, the markets, life itself, they operate like a machine, a complex, interconnected system of cause and effect. Every action sets another reaction in motion. Every decision ripples outward. But the machine doesn't care what we want. It doesn't move to make us comfortable. It moves because that's what it does, in cycles, in patterns, in truths that are often invisible to those who refuse to look deeper. When you finally understand that, but something shifts inside you, you stop fighting reality, you stop panicking when the unexpected happens, you stop trying to command the tide, and instead you learn how to ride it. That's not weakness. That's wisdom, because control doesn't mean bending the world to your will. It means aligning yourself with how the world actually works. It means studying cause and effect, not emotion and desire. It means recognizing that your power lies not in changing the system, but in understanding it deeply enough to move in rhythm with it. The irony is, when you stop chasing control, you actually gain it. You begin to act from clarity, not chaos. You learn to adapt, to anticipate, to prepare, not because you know what will happen, but because you understand the forces that make things happen. That's real control, quiet, calm, grounded in truth. Most silver holders right now are trapped in the illusion. They're watching every price tick, every rumor, every piece of speculation, trying to find meaning in noise. They're reacting to every movement as if it defines the future, but the market isn't reacting to them. It's responding to far larger forces, debt cycles, inflation trends, interest rates, confidence, policy, global demand. These are the levers of the machine, and no single person controls them. If you truly grasp that not just intellectually, but emotionally. It changes how you move through the world. You stop demanding certainty and start seeking understanding. You stop fearing volatility and start seeing opportunity in it. You begin to realize that chaos only frightens those who don't understand its structure, because underneath the uncertainty there's always order. Underneath the noise there's always a pattern, and when you let go of the illusion of control, you finally begin to see it. It's like sailing. You can't control the wind, you can't stop the storms, but you can adjust your sails. You can read the sky. You can position yourself so that even in turbulence, you're still moving forward. That's what wise investors and wise people do. They don't panic when the wind changes. They adapt. They respect the elements instead of denying them. They work with reality, not against it. And in doing so, they find something far more valuable than control. They find peace, because when you understand that you're not meant to dominate the system, but to flow with it, you begin to trust the process. You stop grasping at certainty and start building resilience. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. That's the shift that separates those who thrive from those who struggle. The ones who need control are always in conflict with reality. The ones who understand its limits move with grace through uncertainty. And that's where real power begins. Reality doesn't care about how we feel. That's a hard truth for most people to accept, because emotion is powerful. It drives us, it moves us, it colors every decision we make. But the markets, they don't respond to emotion. They respond to truth, and truth doesn't bend to hope or fear or desire. It just is. When people hold silver or any asset, they rarely see it for what it truly is. They see it through the lens of emotion, through the excitement of rising prices or the anxiety of falling ones. When silver goes up, they feel smart, validated, in control. When it drops, they feel betrayed, angry, afraid. But in both cases, they're not reacting to reality. They're reacting to themselves. That's the trap. Emotion clouds perception. It replaces logic with impulse. It turns long-term principles into short-term reactions. And once emotion takes over, truth fades into the background. People stop asking what's actually happening and start asking, how do I make this feeling go away? But the market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about fear or greed or excitement. It only reflects behavior, collective behavior, and the consequences of that behavior. It's a mirror, not a manipulator. And yet, every time it moves, we project meaning onto it that simply isn't there. Reality moves slowly. Emotion moves fast. That's why most people lose, not because they're unintelligent, but because they're impatient. They want immediate validation. They want certainty in a world that has never promised it. They chase comfort instead of clarity. But if you can step back just for a moment and breathe, you start to see the separation. There's you and there's reality. There's what you feel and there's what is. When those two things align, you move wisely. When they don't, you move blindly. I've watched countless investors over the years fall victim to the same cycle. They get emotionally attached to outcomes. They take every price movement personally. They think in days, not decades. And because of that, They suffer through the same mistakes again and again, buying in hope, selling in fear, repeating the pattern with each new cycle. But the ones who last, they do something different. They detach, not from care, but from chaos. They learn to see emotion for what it is, a signal, not a strategy. They let it inform them, not command them. When fear rises, they listen. When greed whispers, they question it. They understand that emotion is not the enemy. Misunderstanding it is. Reality doesn't punish emotion. It reveals it every crash, every rally, every correction. It shows who's reacting and who's reflecting. It's not about winning every trade or predicting every move. It's about staying grounded when others drift into panic. When you train your mind to separate emotion from observation, something remarkable happens. You begin to see patterns others can't. You notice behavior, not just prices. You recognize when the crowd is chasing noise instead of knowledge. And in that space between emotion and truth, that's where clarity lies. There's a quiet strength in understanding that your feelings don't define reality. The market doesn't rise because you're hopeful, and it doesn't fall because you're afraid. It moves according to forces, debt, demand, supply, policy, principles that have been shaping outcomes for centuries. When you understand those, you stop being a victim of emotion. You start becoming a student of truth, and that's when everything begins to change. You stop reacting to every headline. You stop panicking at every dip. You stop celebrating every surge as if it's eternal. Instead, you begin to see. You see the long arc of movement. You see the rhythm behind the chaos. You see cause and effect, not luck and loss. Emotion will always exist. You can't silence it, but you can master your relationship with it. You can acknowledge fear without being driven by it. You can recognize greed without being ruled by it. That's what separates the few who endure from the many who collapse. Reality is calm. Emotion is noisy. When you choose calm, when you choose truth over reaction, you step into alignment with how the world actually works. And once you start doing that, you stop trying to force outcomes. You start preparing for them. You stop chasing meaning in moments, and you begin to understand meaning in patterns. That's when you're finally ready, not just for what's coming next week, but for everything that comes after. Everything in life and in markets rests on foundations. They are the invisible structures beneath our confidence, the systems we believe will hold, the economy, our money, our governments, our sense of stability. They all depend on foundations that most people never question until they begin to shift. And right now, those foundations are moving. You can feel it in the tension between growth and debt, in the quiet uncertainty behind every investment, in the unease that whispers through the global system. For years, we've lived through an era built on easy money, low interest rates, and the illusion that expansion could continue forever. But history doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in cycles. It builds and then it rebalances. And every time that rebalancing begins, people are caught off guard. They think the world has changed suddenly, but it never does. It changes slowly, quietly, until the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. The truth is, the world is reshaping itself. Monetary tightening is forcing hard choices. Inflation is eroding purchasing power. Debt, both public and private, has reached levels that test the system's stability. Governments and central banks are being pushed into corners where every move carries risk, and the markets, silver included, are beginning to respond not randomly, but in reaction to these deep structural shifts. Most people don't see it because they're looking at the surface, the price movements, the headlines, the noise. But if you look deeper, if you pay attention to the underlying mechanics, you can feel the tremors of something bigger, something fundamental. The financial world is like a great building. For decades, we've been adding floors, more debt, more liquidity, more complexity, but the base has limits. When the weight grows too heavy, the foundation must either strengthen or give way, and in that moment, when the ground shifts, everything built on it begins to move. That's where we are, a turning point, a transition between what was and what will be. Most people will resist it. They'll hold on to old assumptions, old patterns, old comforts. They'll convince themselves that everything will return to normal because normal feels safe. But cycles don't care about comfort. They only care about balance, and balance always returns whether we're ready or not. That's why awareness matters more than prediction, because if you can see the shift, you can adapt to it. If you understand what's changing beneath the surface, you can move with it instead of being crushed by it. Silver holders in particular need to grasp this. The value of real assets is tied not just to demand, but to confidence. Confidence in currencies, in systems, in the very idea of stability. When that confidence weakens, the role of tangible value grows stronger. But that doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens through waves of panic, of reaction, of recalibration. And when those waves hit, they test your perspective. They test whether you truly understand what you own or whether you're just chasing comfort in uncertainty. We are living through one of those testing times, the financial order that defined the last few decades, debt-fueled growth, central bank intervention, artificial liquidity is being rewritten by necessity, and every rewrite brings both pain and opportunity. So when the ground feels unstable, when prices swing without reason, when you feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down, remember, this is what transformation feels like. This is what it means when foundations shift. It's not chaos, it's correction. It's not collapse, it's recalibration. And those who understand that, who stay calm while others panic, will find themselves standing stronger when the dust settles. The world is not ending, it's evolving. And those who learn to see the deeper forces at play, who can look beyond the surface and sense the rhythm beneath the noise, those are the ones who will navigate what comes next, not with fear, but with quiet confidence, because once you understand that the foundation is shifting, you stop clinging to what's crumbling. You start building on what's real. In moments of uncertainty, the instinct to panic is almost irresistible. It's human. When the world feels like it's spinning out of control, our emotions rise faster than our logic. We react before we think. We grasp before we understand. And in those moments, the difference between balance and panic determines everything. The truth is, markets don't destroy people, emotions do. The constant fear of loss, the rush of greed, the pressure to act, to move, to do something. That's what leads most people to destroy their own stability. When prices fall, fear tells you to run. When prices rise, greed tells you to chase. And both voices are loud, seductive, convincing, but the calm voice, the one that whispers instead of shouts, is the one that saves you. It says pause, it says breathe, it says step back and see the full picture. That's balance, and balance is power. You see, balance isn't about avoiding chaos. It's about maintaining your center within it. The most successful investors, the most resilient people, don't escape volatility. They navigate through it. They understand that uncertainty isn't a threat. It's the natural rhythm of life, the ebb and flow that keeps everything alive and evolving. When you lose balance, you react. When you stay balanced, you respond. That difference, that subtle shift, is what separates wisdom from panic, mastery from emotion. Right now, silver holders and investors in general are standing in that space between reaction and response. The winds are shifting, prices are unstable, narratives are clashing, every headline screams urgency, but the truth beneath all the noise is simple. Stability comes from within, not from the market. You cannot control the waves, but you can control your stance. You can decide how firmly you plant your feet, how you absorb the shocks, how you interpret what's happening around you. Panic is contagious. It spreads through crowds, through screens, through the endless cycle of speculation. It feeds on attention, and once it takes root, it blinds. People start selling not because they understand what's happening, but because they're afraid others do. But balance is rare. It's quiet. It's built on patience, on preparation, on understanding that no storm lasts forever. Balance doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means facing it with composure. It means accepting that both gains and losses are part of the same rhythm, that the same wind that knocks you down can also carry you forward if you align with it. When you find balance, you stop chasing certainty. You start seeking clarity. You stop looking for perfect timing. You start building timeless habits, discipline, patience, perspective. It's not easy. The world rewards noise more than stillness. Everyone wants to sound like they know what's next. Few are willing to admit they don't. But real wisdom lies in the humility to say, I don't control the market, but I control myself. And that is where true freedom begins. Balance teaches you to trust the process even when it's painful. It helps you stay rational when others lose their composure. It reminds you that volatility is not your enemy. It's the teacher that reveals how much you truly understand about yourself. When you feel the urge to panic, to act impulsively, to abandon logic, remember this: panic narrows your vision, balance expands it. Panic is loud and chaotic, balance is silent and powerful. Panic is temporary, balance endures. The strongest people you'll ever meet are not the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall, pause, breathe, and rise again with perspective. Because in the end, what matters most isn't how perfectly you predict the future, it's how calmly you navigate it. The market will always rise and fall. Silver will always move in waves. Narratives will always change. But your ability to remain centered, to stay grounded in truth while others drown in fear, that's what defines your outcome. Balance is not the absence of movement. It's grace within movement. And when you find it, no amount of chaos can shake you.